channel, dare I say, Culture Catz and Made by Jim Bob. Thanks you fellas both. I really appreciate you, and it's good to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
All right, we actually have a double header tonight. So for those of you who don't know, we have two debates. We're going to try to keep each debate to an hour. First debate being evidence for God. Second debate is going to be about evolution. All right, so we're going to follow the following format. Jim Bob is going to have first opening statement, followed by Catz. Jim Bob will get an uninterrupted rebuttal, followed by Catz, and then we'll have an open discussion. Jim Bob getting the first word, Catz closing statement, Jim Bob closing statement, 5-minute intermission, everything reversed for the evolution debate. Before we begin, I actually want to issue Jim Bob a public apology. We met about a year ago in Nashville, Jim Bob, at the BayCon 6, and you were kind enough to do a post-debate interview with me following your debate with Leonard Peterson. This has been hanging over my head for about a year. That that interview never went live on my channel because I had an audio issue recording with you, and sorry to say, but I did, yeah. So of all the post-debate interviews I did, you were one of my favorites, and sadly that never went live. But I do appreciate it, and I apologize for that. All right, thank you. All right, that feels better to get off my shoulders now. All right, let's get into it. First debate, evidence for God. Jim Bob, opening statement, 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
You're up, brother.
All right, cool. Thanks a lot. All right. Evidence for God. Let's define evidence, anything that supports that a fact, statement, or belief is true. Evidence comes in a variety of forms, of course. God, as I'm going with it tonight, the architect and creator of all things visible and invisible. Now, I'd like to point out that in order for evidence to exist and be further evaluated, there is a whole slew of other things that need to be first the case. The universe needs to operate a certain way. This is almost always taken for granted. There needs to be regularity of nature, laws of physics. There needs to be information, meaning, knowledge, mathematics, laws of logic, universals and particulars. These are all necessary preconditions for being able to interact with anything we call evidence. The universe needs to be intelligible, and it needs a mind to interpret it. This isn't given for granted to any view. A lot of people just take it for granted. I don't grant this. Now, can you mute yourself typing, Catz?
Oh, sorry, my microphone is muted,
I
but
was
it's
just
still
about to
coming
mute
through.
you.
Apologies, mate.
No
Apologies.
worries.
Yes, supposed to.
No
My
worries.
microphone was, but I'll mute myself on here. Apologies for that.
Okay. All right, thanks. Now, what you notice about the things I listed, information, meaning, math, laws of logic, minds, none of them are physical or material, nor have they been verified through an empirical method. Keep that in mind during the open discussion when my opponent uses a strictly empirical standard for God, but he won't use the same standard for things like facts or truth or minds or information or the laws of logic. He will claim that he only holds to an established fact, right? But facts exist, right? This is the whole paradigm. Facts exist. God is an established fact. These are facts, right? But there is no evidence or physical phenomenon we call a fact in the natural world. So it is a bit interesting when people do a cross-examination of, say, evidence for God, and they appeal to things like facts, but under their own view, under their own criterion, or under their own standard, they should actually reject the existence of a fact, being that it's completely, basically a fabrication of their mind. Now, a fact is an abstraction, which means it's conceptual, and concepts come from a mind, not from the external world. A concept is not found in a tree. A concept's not found in a rock or anything like this, which means it's conceptual, and concepts come from a mind. So I think we could start with the basic premise that concepts are associated or come from a mind. Facts are also discovered. Now, this is a key point. If facts are discovered and not created, then nothing can be discovered unless it already exists. So when you say, I discovered something, you're assuming that it was there to be discovered. Now, the alternative is, I invented a fact. Now, I wouldn't accept anyone who said they invented a fact, because on what basis would it be true if you could merely invent them arbitrarily? Therefore, facts have some type of ontological existence before human minds discern and describe them. If facts are conceptual and require a mind, and facts exist before we discover them, then this necessitates a type of mind. The same applies to the laws of logic. Surely my opponent will agree that the laws of logic exist, but he won't find them under a microscope. The laws of logic are also conceptual, which means they also require a mind. The laws of logic are also universal and invariant, so that would entail a particular type of mind. It is unreasonable to hold the position that if such a mind, or I should say, is it unreasonable to hold the position that if such a mind existed, then I would expect to find unchanging abstract concepts? Is it unreasonable to categorize them as evidence? I don't think so. If a God exists as the architect of an intentional universe, I would also expect a universe that was ordered and intelligible with the capacity for intentionality and free will. That is the universe we experience. This debate is an act of all of our wills coming together with intentionality, and that assumes a directionality as well. Now, that would be consistent with a God who created the universe. Now, what is the only alternative to an intentional universe if it's not intentional? Well, it would be an accidental universe. Now, this is a true dilemma. A dilemma is something that my opponent will have to actually engage with, being that I'm presenting it as an aspect of my affirmative and my evidence. So either the universe is intentional or it's not. There's no in between. Either the universe is intentional or it's accidental. If he rejects the dilemma, he's going to need to present a third option. Otherwise, it holds as a true dilemma. An accidental existence would not provide the necessary conditions for evaluating evidence. Why? Because if the universe was accidental, then so too are the laws of logic and the laws of nature, which means our own rational faculties would both be the product and the action of accidental processes. That imagine coming to a debate while simultaneously holding that we accidentally discover truth with accidental brains, which accidentally arrive at accidental conclusions about accidental worlds, and then having the unawareness to demand evidence for anything coming from that view. Even the act of debating assumes intentionality and assumes directionality. This leaves us with only one arm left in the dilemma: intentionalism. An intentional universe requires intent. Intent requires will. Will requires a being with a mind who has the capacity to create an intelligible universe with invariant abstract laws. That is the universe we live in, unless my opponent claims I just accidentally think that. Again, either the universe is intentional or it's accidental. If it's intentional, it requires a mind. If it's accidental, then knowledge and reasoning is impossible, and this debate would be nonsensical. I'll see the rest of my time.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Jim Bob. Catz, you're up for your intro.
Thanks. Before we just shoot into that, I think I figured out why. I apologise for the microphone thing before. I've muted this, but I'm coming through my webcam. I've seen some people in the crowd say, the audience say, and the sound is going to be awful. If I refresh my page before we start, I can select the right microphone and the sound quality will be a lot better. Is that okay?
You sound good. I can always mute you if you have issues.
Does it sound clear? Does it sound clear enough, or does it sound a bit muffled? I can see a few people in the chat saying it was sounding a bit muffled. Let's have a look.
Mandan, hey. Yeah, you sound okay to me.
Okay. As long as I can always
That's better.
I haven't changed anything yet, but as long as you think it's okay. Right. Let's get this. I'm not going to speak for quite as long. Let's just go. Can I share screen at any point?
You can. It should be along the bottom. There should be a share screen option.
Fandabby-dozy.
Catz?
Yeah?
Is that the mic you're using right in front of you that's on the screen?
No, that's what I mean. It should be, but I think it's being picked up by my webcam, which is rubbish.
Yeah.
So is it sounding a bit bad on your end?
Yeah, it's just low. My audience is saying it's very low.
Yeah. Maybe if I just refresh my thing
and select it.
Select the
yeah,
right
I think try that. It's better for everyone, I think, if you do that.
Yep. Thanks, guys. Sorry for the technical difficulties.
Right, I'm sorry, guys. How's that?
Oh, that's way better, Catz, actually. Yeah, thanks, Jim Bob.
Yeah, fantastic. Right, so I'll get my screen shared. And okay, I'm not going to speak anywhere near as long. Is that up? Can everyone see that? Okay, right, before we start, I'm not here because I want to stop people believing in God, all right? And this is something I always say, but I want to lay it out right at the beginning because, you know, Jim Bob's audience might think that I've got a different viewpoint than I actually have, all right? I truly believe, well, I know that a belief in God has helped a lot of people in their lives. It's helped people come out of alcoholism. It's helped people come out of drug addiction. It's helped people turn around from crime. It's done a lot of people a lot of good. So I'd never tell people that, you know, you shouldn't believe in God, etc. I don't think that's helpful, and I don't think it's my place to tell them that. However, one of my strengths is that I'm an extremely petty individual. And I don't like what I call the dumbification of the human race, which is where people decide they can prove things by, you know, especially prove the existence of the supernatural by saying ridiculous things. So, for example, on my channel, I had somebody proving God because they pulled a tin of squirty cheese out the fridge. And you had lots of people in the comments saying, oh, yeah, you know, amazing proof of God. And it just makes me laugh. But I'm here for Jim Bob literally to present his evidence to me. And if I think, you know what, Jim Bob, that's actually a good evidence for God, I'll tell you that's a good piece of evidence for God. It won't make me believe in God, I don't think. Let's have a little bit of a look at the conversation we had. I'm not going to be offering any counter argument in this section. This is just, I want to introduce my stance. We started off by trying to come up with a title for the debate. And you, of course, YouAreMopped, you said a nice structured debate, and I kind of misheard something or misread something Jim Bob had put in the Twitter message we sent, and I put, right, Jim Bob basically wants to have half of the debate about the proof of God, and Jim Bob replied, and he was saying, no, and quite rightly so, like, you've just don't be sneaky, right? You've shifted the prompt, because evidence for God isn't proof of God. So by Jim Bob's own standard, he's going to present his best evidence he can tonight, but he's not setting out with the intention of proving God exists, etc. Jim Bob also selected the title. This is Jim Bob's suggestion for the second half of this debate, which is there good evidence for evolution? All right. So by Jim Bob's own definition in the second half of the debate, you know, he's not trying to prove God here. He's just offering up evidence for me to see whether it's good evidence, and I can grill him on it and I can ask him about it. And in the second half, I'll be offering up good evidence for evolution, and he can grill me about it and he can tell me why he thinks it's not very good. And that is essentially the debate we're going to have. And I'd like it to be really honest. I'd like Jim just to say, when we get into the back and forth, this is my evidence for God. What problem have you got with it? Right? Why do you think it's not good evidence for God? I don't really want to be dog walked through a series of questions one at a time, painlessly, that are pre-planned to meander from left to right. I'd like a nice, honest debate where Jim will just say, here's my evidence. And I'm obviously going to do that when we talk about evolution. I'll just stop sharing now. Now, for me, I'm not expecting, obviously, any scientific proof tonight. I don't think Jim Bob would even suggest himself that God can be proved scientifically. I don't think Jim Bob would agree that scientific proof for God is possible. Which makes me think that the proof he is going to offer, the evidence he is going to offer, stick with that language, the evidence he's going to offer is going to be pretty weak source. And I think it's going to essentially be his own thought process, his own kind of like the way he's reasoned God into existence in his own mind. And I think it will be very, very powerful maybe for himself and people who've grown up with similar beliefs, but will it actually be good evidence? Can I actually look at what he's saying and say, you know what, that is good evidence? Or will I find it to be full of holes? We shall see. But I'm looking forward to an honest debate on it, where we're not trying to catch each other out with a bit of one-upmanship or over-talking or shouting or screaming or anything like that. Just present your evidence to me, Jim Bob, in full, and then we'll talk about it. And I think if you're after the same kind of thing, both debates will go really, really well. That's what I want. But my stance is that the universe doesn't need a God to explain its existence, and God simply can't be proven anyway. Either way, it just simply can't be proven, and I don't think there's any evidence that can be provided for God's existence. But if you want to believe in God, go ahead and believe in God. However, stay away from religion, because that's toxic in many, many forms. That's it. That's just my little, I just want to introduce my stance. I'm not really trying to offer anything massive in that point.
Good enough, Catz. Thank you very much. All right, if you don't mind muting yourself, it is Jim Bob's turn to rebut. Jim Bob, the stage is yours.
Sure. All right. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so what comes into question, I'm not sure if what he was doing maybe he didn't listen to the open air, maybe he took his notes, he'll do that later. But as far as evidence is concerned, one of the things that I'm actually not granting from his view, which is the whole slew of things that you need to actually investigate even evidential claims or empirical claims or even logical claims. When he says, well, I don't think we need a God to, investigate, and I think we don't need basically a justification for how the universe is. Well, that's just an assertion. That's just an ad hoc position. As I said in my opener, of course, my opponent is going to affirm the existence of the following: regularity of nature, laws of physics, information, meaning, knowledge, mathematics, laws of logic, universals, particulars, minds, knowledge. Does he think knowledge exists? Facts is a good one. He has to affirm this exists, because his entire position, insofar as his incredulity to God's existence, is based on likely an empirical standard for what constitutes a good belief. What constitutes good evidence? Well, I would ask him, okay, if you hold that these things exist, laws of logic, mathematics, knowledge, meaning, universals, facts, if you hold that they do exist, then by saying they exist, they require a type of ontology. My evidence that points and supports God's existence is the category of all of these things I mentioned are abstract and conceptual. The argument that they are evidence is that conceptual things, abstract things, need to be based in a mind. There's no abstract thing you can point to that doesn't require a mind. And it's actually, in fact, definition. It's a definition to abstract and conceptual. It points to, it's inextricably tied to a mind. What I laid out as evidence is if you discover facts, then facts exist before you. If the laws of logic exist in a way before we discover them and describe them, then you have at least two concepts there that are abstract that need a mind. The fact that we discover things, the fact that we can actually go out in the world and discover things utilizing necessarily pre-existing concepts, those concepts need to be rooted in a mind. That is supporting evidence for a mind that is not human, that comes before all human beings from both of our views. My opponent would likely hold, obviously, we're not going to get into evolution itself as a debate until after, but if he holds that human beings didn't always exist, but a world did such that human beings could exist through some process that's biological, then the laws of logic also would have a type of existence, because you can't have processes and invariant laws, even in nature, without the laws of logic. The law of identity needs to be true. So in short, my rebuttal is he needs to actually deal with that category, right? He can't just grant himself that category, because that's part of my argument. And he also has to deal with the dilemma. Either the universe is accidental, just exists accidentally, or it's intentional. That's a fair dilemma. I would like my opponent to interact with the dilemma and interact with the category of conceptual invariant things that I mentioned.
Great argument. All right. Thank you, Jim Bob, for that succinct reply. And Kat, you are up for 3 minutes with your rebuttal. Go.
Muted.
Oh, Kat, you're muted. We can unmute you. It's my fault.
What I said there was so profound as well. It won the debate in 10 seconds. I don't know if I can remember it. I'm just going to claim victory now. Right. I personally think Jim is making a lot of assumptions. My stance is this: we have reality, right? Reality is the way it is. Things behave the way they behave, whether humans are here or not, whether any life is here or not. We simply have reality, and everything that else that Jim is talking about logic and reasoning, and laws of this and laws of that, requiring some external mind. I simply just that's something he is going to have to prove. He's going to have to explain to me why. For example, let's look at the law of non-contradiction. All right, why does that need an external mind? We take an example of what that means. Something can't be read and not read at the same time, right? So if you take all the life away from Earth and something in the universe is read and not read, or something is just read, sorry, it's not read, how is that evidence for God? That is silly. You're just saying without life, something can't be read and not read at the same time is proof of God. I mean, how? You're using these laws as if they are physical entities that reside in somebody's mind. And I see you shaking your head, which is good. That's something we can talk about. All right. If I've misinterpreted what you're saying, then that's what we'll thrash out. We'll have an honest debate about it. But my stance is very, very simple. We have reality. And then all of these laws that you are talking about are tools that we use to describe reality, and no more. They don't exist as entities outside of the human brain. It is as simple as that. And I would challenge you. Can you point to logic somewhere existing outside of a mind? Can you point to anything? Any of these laws that you are referring to, can you point to any of them existing anywhere? And obviously the answer is no. So all you're simply saying is they must exist somewhere, therefore they must exist in God's mind. You're defining God into existence just through your own assumption. So that'd be interesting to get into, because either A, I haven't understood your argument first time round, and we'll get into it, or B, I have, and you are just defining God into existence because you want him to be true.
All right. Thanks, Catz. Excellent response. Thanks for keeping that short and sweet. We're going to go into the open discussion portion of the debate. Make sure both of you are unmuted. Jim Bob gets the first word here in the open discussion. Yep. So off to you.
Yeah, I don't think you're engaging with the actual statements I'm saying. You did say something I agreed with, which you said, the laws of logic don't actually exist in nature. That's actually my argument, is that laws of logic, meaning, information, these things are assumed to have an existence, even from your view, but you don't verify these things through your empirical standard of evidence. I argued in my opener and in my rebuttal that the laws of logic are invariant and conceptual, right? You agree. They need a mind. We agree. Concepts need a mind. My argument was the laws of logic, facts, they actually exist before we discover them. So I'm making a really highlight in the chronology of how we discover things. It's true, if we discover something, then it already existed. Right? Let's start with that. If we discover something, then it necessarily existed for us to discover it. So if I discovered a fact, or I discovered the laws of logic, if those two are conceptual and I discovered them, then they had to exist before I discovered them. So the question is, how does your view, you can't just say, by the way, reality is reality, because that's granting the thing in question. Is reality one thing? Is reality a collection of particulars? Is reality anything you can just see and smell and taste and move around? That's what's in question tonight. So I would really like you to engage with the most basic form of my presentation, which is either the universe you see accidentally exists, or it intentionally exists. If that's a dilemma that's true, you have to engage with one or the other. If it's not true, you're going to have to tell me a third option. Secondly, I'd like you to engage with, if the laws of logic exist, is it true that they depend on a mind?
Okay, where do you want me to start? Which one?
If the laws of logic exist, in what way do they exist?
So the laws of logic are exactly that, the laws of logic. Before people walked and talked, before there was any life on Earth, nobody was talking about the laws of logic. There was literally just reality. And then as people found more about reality and they thought more about how they want to think about things and reason about things, they've developed an understanding of reality around them, and they've defined them into different laws. So to me, there's no link between people defining these laws in the way they understand reality and the need for a God. I'd like you to tell me why that means there should be a God.
I would say that, but you didn't answer my question. I asked you, if the laws of logic exist, what's the way in which they exist? So if I asked you, does an apple exist? You'd say, of course, mate. An apple exists materially, physically, right? So the same question, Catz, is if the laws of logic exist, which is an ontological claim, I'm asking you, from your view, what way do they exist? How do they exist? In what form, right?
Okay, so let's nail down, when you use the word exist, are you talking, like, I don't want to get bogged down in definitions or anything like that, but you define for me what you mean by the term to actually exist.
Let's go with, there's two options: concrete, physical, material, or abstract, conceptual. Let's just do the two.
So if something is abstract and conceptual, then it's exactly what I said before. It's a thought process in our mind that we have put together to describe the world around us. And it didn't exist at all in any way before life appeared.
Okay, good. Okay, so you're saying the laws of logic are conceptual then?
I'm saying the laws of logic, my exact words are the laws of logic are a system of thinking that we've developed over time to explain what we see, the world around us, to try and make predictions about things. And that's it. It's something that we have come up with as humans. All right, chimps haven't done it, fish haven't done it, humans have done it. And nobody was mentioning the laws of logic before humans started walking and talking.
I understand, but I'm still asking you a question. The laws of logic, they're conceptual, right? In the way they exist, not material. You don't find a law of identity under a rock, right?
Well, I think you're trying to shoehorn in the word exist into what I think you're trying to load that, which is why I'm giving you the answer, because what I think you are going for is you're trying to say that the laws of logic, they exist, right? They're a thing, they exist. So therefore, they must always have existed, and they require a mind, they're mind dependent, and there must be God. Well, I just simply don't agree with that premise. I've told you what I think the laws of logic are. Now, you can use the word exist, and you can try and shoehorn it in, but my answer to what you're saying is they are simply just a way of how we think about the world around us, how we think about problem solving. It's a system of a system that humans have created. So that is my answer.
I just want to jump in. I want to remind people of the topic, which is evidence for God. So I don't want to get bogged down in definitions. Go ahead.
Right.
Jimbo.
So that still doesn't actually, you're actually referring to the laws of logic, but failing to tell me in which way they exist. I thought we agreed that everything in my opener, laws of logic, information, right? Let's go with information. Do you believe information exists?
Now, Jimbo, let me switch a second. How much do you think I weigh? How much do you think I weigh?
About 172
pounds.
Pounds.
Yeah, pounds. Yeah.
Okay. So when me and you were talking about weight, you've thrown out 172 pounds, and in colloquial talk, everyday talk, everybody knows what that means, right? But if I was gonna pin you down to a scientific definition, and I'd be a dick to do it, but I could be pointing and laughing and go, no, because weight is measured in newtons, and you're using that term incorrectly. And now when you start using terms like information in a colloquial everyday term, that has a different meaning to what it does in philosophy. So,
Catz, this is going to lead to evidence for God, right? An argument.
Yeah, we can define it. You could just ask me what I mean by information if you're unclear, and I'll tell you.
Yeah, shoot. What do you mean by information?
Even the most current secular definition that seems to work, if you agree, is basically data plus semantics. So there's data that's just raw, and then semantics or meaning added to the data. You put them together, voila, you have information.
So data would be then just things that are observed in reality, measured, recorded by humans, and then interpreted by humans. So again, we have reality and then we have a human perception. So there's nothing there that requires. If you, I'm struggling to see any link between what you're saying here and the requirement of a
well, the thing,
supernatural.
I can't make a link if you reject that information exists. So I'm asking you very basically, under your view of information or knowledge or math or anything else, I'm asking you basically, do they exist? Does information have a type of existence? Yes or no?
And this is why I brought up the weight issue before, because what you want to do is take a colloquial meaning for information and turn it into a philosophical meaning for information. And that's a bit of a sleight of hand. That's where you're trying to go.
It is a philosophical definition.
In everyday talk, right? If you said to me, "Oh, I need those numbers on my desk tomorrow," you know, or I need a bit more information about this case because I'm going to crack it and
okay, let's go with concepts.
The Last Jedi.
Let's go more general. Do concepts exist?
Again, concepts are. Give me an example of what you would define as a concept.
Laws of logic.
So the laws of logic. Again, I knew you were going there. I knew you were going there, Jim. So again, they are things. I mean, I can't explain. This might be something we have to agree to disagree on. But to me, when we get things like logic, the laws of logic, they are just simply things that we use to describe reality as it is. They don't exist outside. They are the things we are describing exist, like the reality exists, but the laws of logic, the information we use, all that is
we use things.
In our minds.
Okay, we use information. There, can you use something that doesn't exist? Because you just said we use information.
So again, let's go. Remember I was saying before about the colloquial and the philosophical?
Do you use information?
So in a colloquial sense, give me more information on this case, we're going to use that information. Yeah.
Do you use information, yes or no?
But if you're going to go for strict philosophical...
You won't answer a question.
Sorry, there's a lag. I don't know if I'm talking over you or you're me. I'm not doing it on purpose. If there's a lag. Was that me talking over you or vice versa?
I just want to know, it's a really simple answer, a question. Do you use information? Because you just said you did. So I just want an affirmative. Yes, you do use information.
But define information again.
Data plus semantics.
So do we use observations and our own reasoning, which is data plus semantics? Yes. If you want to talk about information as some kind of abstract thing that's out there, well, that's not how I'm interpreting it. So
well, I just
again, we totally disagree.
I just want to know. No, I'll bring it back. I'll bring it back. Don't worry. It's actually angled in. I just have to have him actually take an affirmative on what we're talking about. The denying that information has some type of existence basically makes all of the debate impossible anyway, even the next debate. So if information exists such that we can utilize it, do you agree information, colloquially or philosophically, doesn't exist the way a rock does? You don't pick up an information thing like that is identical to information. You can't pick up and have like a piece of information in your hand, right? It's a conceptual, abstract way of describing something, right? That has meaning.
It's something that is interpreted by the human mind.
You mean a concept?
Well, I asked you to define concept before, and you said the laws of logic. Now you're saying a concept is information. So,
well, I would say, look, my argument, if you listen to my opener, information, laws of thought, knowledge, truth, numbers, categories. This is not controversial. This is a conceptual, abstract category. It's not material. There's no meaning actually in the tree as matter. There's no information that's in the desk itself that tells you what the desk is. That's just data. That's just pure raw data. So all I'm trying to get you, which really shouldn't be this hard to get you to admit, to just say it. It's not a huge trap. It's just like, does the conceptual realm exist? Does math exist? Do concepts exist? Do categories exist?
Let's just get an answer from Catz, and then we'll go from there and see how that's proof of or evidence of God.
So all of these things exist only in a colloquial way. They don't exist. If we took all life away from the universe, they simply would not exist.
Okay, so let's go with that. If we took away life in the universe and just had non-living things like rocks and planets, then the law of identity wouldn't exist.
So the law, I've got two answers for this one, Jim. So the law of identity is basically saying that a dog is a dog, cat is a cat, planet is a planet, right? That's how the universe behaves, and that is how we describe the universe, right? So are you trying to tell me that if there was no life, that suddenly a planet would become a dog? Or, it just wouldn't be a planet. Is that what you're trying to say? Like, just, it sounds to me that...
Yeah. Do you, like, first of all, you hold the position that there's an ancient past, right? In the universe before all life, right? That just rocks and planets and movements, right? What I'm asking you is, doesn't the law of identity still apply before any life exists, just based on rocks and things existing?
There is no law of identity before life. There's none.
There's no law of identity before life.
The way reality behaves, hang on. The way reality behaves is the way reality behaves. When we started to learn how reality behaves, we gave these names. That is a law of identity. When
behavior
we were
of what,
starting to
Catz?
think about philosophy.
Behavior of what?
The behavior, sorry.
What behaves? What behaves?
I said, so the nature of how the universe behaves. Not
the universe. The universe is a broad concept. Inside a universe, what's actually behaving? What undergoes behavior particularly?
So, like,
anything.
Reality.
Any example? No. That's more abstract. Again.
One example.
Reality.
One example. So let's say a planet orbiting a star.
A planet, is that an object with an identity?
Only because I've given it an identity, and before humans existed, nobody would call them a planet.
I didn't ask for the word.
Identity.
No. The law of identity isn't the name for the thing. The law of identity is that the thing, in a very long distant past that you believe in, the world and the universe operated a certain way. And I'm saying that you can't have operations without the law of identity. That is to say, the planet, way long ago that you hold existed as itself, and not as itself. A equals A. That's the law of identity. So all I asked you is, in an ancient, distant past, isn't it true that the conceptual law of identity, it actually existed? The law of identity existed.
No.
So then you don't have a past then.
If you were to say to me, is it not true that before all life existed in the universe, that the universe had a pattern of behavior? Right, then I'd say yeah. But by you packaging that into laws, which you want to insert into a mind.
Fine, Catz. The word pattern, you just said patterns exist, behaviors exist. Do you know that a pattern is conceptual?
A pattern, I'm using obviously colloquial language here. We're
Is
going to
a
get into
pattern,
the philosophical.
bro?
So define what you mean by pattern. Are you talking about a pattern on a wall? Are you talking about patterns of behavior? What do you mean by pattern?
Patterns
when you say that?
We are talking about the hard reality of nature in space or life. You just also affirmed patterns exist, but I'm telling you, pattern is a concept. And you have to hold in the past, especially if you believe in evolution, that there are patterns of biology. But patterns are not found in the items themselves. That's why I'm bringing in the evidence for God is the fact that patterns, which are invariant, patterns that you can identify and later describe and discover, if a pattern exists that you can discover, then the pattern must exist before you discover it and describe it. If the pattern exists before, let's listen, you're not even listening to my argument. You're not even listening.
I'm listening very well. I'm not interrupting.
No. If a pattern can be discovered and described, it follows that the pattern existed before you discovered it. If a pattern exists, it can't be identical to nature, a materiality, concrete. It has to be conceptual.
Okay, so this is where the word games begin. Because you're right, I did colloquially, like you said before, I weigh a certain number of pounds, because colloquially, that's the reason I asked that question. We do use words that actually, if we nail them down for science and philosophy, might have slightly different meanings. I did colloquially use the word pattern. Perhaps what I should have said is literally physics. The reality behaves the way reality behaves. And the fact that nobody was around at the time to call something a pattern or to describe something using a law of identity simply means that the concepts of patterns and laws of identity simply didn't exist. All that existed was reality. And I'm really struggling to see how you're going to jump from here to the supernatural.
Did you know that reality is a metaphysical term?
That's nice.
So you're saying we don't want to get into philosophy. We want to talk about the world as it is. Reality is reality. Shout out to Tom Jump. You just said reality or the universe. I'm telling you that that's actually an abstraction. Reality itself is an abstraction. Reality, the word reality, is that a set of particulars? Is that one set of particulars? Is that one big thing? What is it?
How is that proof of God? By telling me that reality is an abstraction, how is that proof evident? Not proof, evidence of God.
If
How is that evidence
reality,
of God?
I'm trying to tell you, if things like patterns, laws of logic, mathematics, knowledge, truth, information are not identical to matter and they are in a conceptual category, right? Then the conceptual category I'm arguing has to exist before us. That's evidence for a mind that comes before us. Now, not all the way up until this point, Catz, you actually haven't even attempted to steelman it or engage with those statements.
I'll steelman it for you. But also, I'd like it's quite cordial so far. I'd like, once I've steelmanned it, to tell you why I think it's wrong as well, if you can grant me that. Okay, so I think to steelman what you're trying to say is you're conjuring up these ideas of, the law of identity and, the laws of thought. You're trying to abstract concepts like maths and numbers, and you're trying to kind of shoehorn them into something that existed before life existed. And because they're mind dependent, you're then trying to say there must be a mind that must be God's mind, I'm assuming. Right?
Okay, can you try that again? Can you try that again without the bad faith of what I'm attempting to smuggle? Just give me the steelman in argument form.
Well, I think I've done that. If you didn't like the word smuggle, I'm sorry, but I think I've said it. So if I go on to counter that, what I'd say is that I have said over and over and over and over again that all that existed before life was there to conjure up these concepts and abstract ideas and to interpret the reality in a certain way.
Okay.
All that was there was physical reality, and that is literally it. I know you want me to say these things were there before life started, because then you can say they required a mind and God, but I simply don't believe that. I simply don't believe it.
Okay, fine. Then let's do it this way. Did we discover the laws of logic or create them?
We discovered how reality behaves, and we discovered through conversation and trial and error certain ways of thinking about things that work. I think.
What was my question?
Do we discover or create them?
Them what?
So I think it's a little bit of a mix, because we discovered how reality works, and we discovered how reality behaves, and then we wrote these laws down to be passed on to people. Hang on, just let me finish this bit. We wrote these laws down, which would fulfill like the creating side, and we passed them on. It's not a supernatural thing that we did there. We just observed something. We figured out how it worked. We wrote it down. But to me is not proof of the supernatural.
Hold on. The question was, did we create the laws of thought? And you said, well, we investigated reality. Did you know you can't investigate reality without assuming the law of identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle? You're actually, before we actually named these terms, law of identity, non-contradiction, excluded middle, we investigated by your own standard, by your own story. We investigated the external world. I simply asked you, the law of identity, excluded middle, non-contradiction, are the laws of thought invented or discovered?
I do think Catz answered that. I'm trying to remain neutral, but I think he said it was a mix.
That's meaningless to me. A mix. How do you do a mix of creating invariant laws of thought that are universal? How do you create universal laws of logic? How do you do that?
So people discover things about reality, and they figure out patterns in reality and how things work, and they figure out ways of thinking about investigation and about reality. They use their reasoning. So it's a combination between figuring things out, discovering things, and then packaging it into a set of laws and distributing it in written form and verbal form. That's how these laws of logic spread. Now, if you want a one word, or was was that discovered or created, then I think what you're doing is being quite dishonest there and trying to take a quite a comprehensive answer and just squeeze it into one little thing that you can shoehorn to help your own argument. But the fact is, your own argument is no further to prove or to showing evidence for the existence of God as it was 45 minutes ago.
It is actually. You know what? My argument would go through fine, and you might even know this. You might actually be smart enough to know this, because you know the entailment of the laws of logic being conceptual and universal and being discoverable. You actually have to hold that they existed in a way for us to discover it. The problem is you also know that if they're conceptual, they necessitate a mind, and you're doing everything in your power to obfuscate and make it muddy, right? Equivocate and make it completely nebulous on what, first of all, the laws of logic are, how they exist. You did this with information. You did it with knowledge. You did it with meaning. You did it with patterns, right? A pattern, definitionally a pattern, is something conceptual that we discover, a pattern. Patterns are not found identical to nature.
Okay. So I get that it's frustrating when somebody constantly stops and asks you for definitions on things. And I get that you feel it's railroading or derailing the debate because it's not going the way you want, because you can't get to where you want to get to because the other person is constantly picking you up on little things. I get how that feels. And I know that's something you never do in your debates. I would say, again, I've forgotten what the bloody question was now because I've given that smart ass answer.
The question was, did we discover math? Did we discover a mathematical theorem, or did we arbitrarily create it?
So did we discover mathematical theorem or create it? That is a hell of an answer. I think we discover truths about reality.
Truth.
And then when we write them down, we discover truths about reality. And then when we write them down to communicate them, we are. So for example, if I discover, I'll give you an example of why I'm saying that, and then that'll be more concrete to you. How about this, all right? Okay, be more concrete.
You gave me a perfect answer, actually, for my argument. Now, being that I'm on the affirmative, I would like to actually go with what you just said.
I'll just give you that example, and then
because you're eating up my time. You're eating up.
This is great. 5 minutes, guys. Then we're going to take intermission. Go on.
Right, I'll give you that example. Right. So what I mean is, we might discover that if I have like one rock here and another rock here, like we kind of like discover that we've got two rocks, but we can't vocalize it. I might know that if I've got 10 lots of that, I've got 20 rocks, but I can't vocalize that until we create the idea of numbers and maths around it.
I get it. You're eating up my time. This is all filibustering. You said we discover truth. That's all I needed from you. Isn't it true that if you
I didn't say we discover truth.
You literally did.
No, I didn't. Absolutely did not. And I want to put
rewind it. You discover truths. You said.
No, I didn't.
Yes,
I said
you
we
did.
discover things about reality.
You said we discover truth. Now you're just lying.
Truth is a whole different ball game. If we're going to talk about truth,
man.
If we're going to talk about truth, you need to define what truth is. You need to tell me whether you think truth is a property of a proposition or not, and then we can talk about truth. You can't just shoehorn in. And even if I did misspeak, then I'm addressing it now. If you want to talk about truth, you have to tell me, is truth a property of a proposition or is it something else?
Even if you said property of a proposition or a state of affairs, if truth was simply a state of affairs, there's a truth of the matter whether we describe it or not. Do you agree in the past there was a truth of the matter before we could describe it?
Just say that. Well, you're using the word truth again.
Was there a truth of the matter of the past?
Truth? I define truth.
Do you believe in the Big Bang?
Quality of a proposition.
Cool. Do you believe in the Big Bang?
Do I believe in the Big Bang?
Yeah.
I'm not an astronomer. I know views are split on that.
Okay. Do you believe that the Earth came together in some sort of process that was natural?
I don't believe there was any supernatural.
You're just going to not answer the question?
Yeah. So, I don't believe.
Do you believe
evidence for God? Evidence
for
God.
Yeah. The thing is, if there was a truth of the matter of the past, it couldn't be identical to matter. It would also have to be conceptual.
Yeah, but you're using the word truth, and I've asked
state
you,
of affairs.
Truth the property
state of affairs? No, I said
so
state of affairs.
So you're conflating truth with reality.
What?
If you're saying
I'm conflating truth with reality?
Yeah, you're basically saying that truth is just reality, the way things are.
You literally opened by saying reality is reality.
No. Can I just share my screen very quickly, Jimbo? Sorry, YouAreMopped.
Of course.
Because some of the greatest minds in human history, I've got something for you.
Minds? Do
Some of
minds
the greatest
exist?
minds. Aristotle, right? And you can pause these and read these later on. We've got Aristotle, we've got Richard Rorty, we've got Thomas Aquinas,
Just
we've
eat
got
my
Bertrand
time.
Russell,
I don't
we've got
care.
Hilary Putnam,
I don't
Michael
care. I didn't
Dummett,
ask to see
Charles
your
Sanders
slides.
Peirce, we've got Frederick Nietzsche.
Mod,
We have
I didn't
more-
ask to see his slides.
Let me
I'm making
finish.
the affirmative.
let
He's
me
eating up
finish
time. This
argument.
is filibustering.
That's
He
all
just
right.
said, Matt,
let me finish what
Katz,
I'm going to say.
you
and
just
then I'll
said
shut up.
minds
Let
exist.
me finish what I'm going to say, and then
You
Fair
just
enough.
said minds existed.
Hey, guys, closing statements are still coming. This is still open discussion. 2 more minutes.
I just want to finish this one sentence, then you get it. You get the floor, Bob. Right? So you're using truth, and you're saying it's state refers. What I've just done is I've shown you a whole load of the world's leading philosophy professors at the leading universities that essentially say truth is a property of a preposition, which is not state of affairs. They disagree with you. If you think you can explain why your version of the word truth beats the best philosophers in the world, brilliant. You go for it.
Great. Yeah, at least those people, if I debated them, they would actually accept the proposition that truth, laws of thought are conceptual. You couldn't even do that. Now, what you did say, Katz, is that
I
before
never
you
said
brought up-
truth wasn't conceptual.
you
I
wouldn't
said
affirm
truth
that
was
it
a
was.
property of a. You're putting words in my mouth. I said truth is
a
a property of a
is
proposition.
Is a proposition conceptual?
So a proposition is in the mind, isn't it?
Is it conceptual, dude?
It's in the mind.
Oh my gosh, look at you. You know it. You actually know it. You're giggling and you
It's in
know
the
it.
mind.
You know you're look, you
I know I
you
might be giving
like
you a hard
get
time,
off. You just get off on not answering questions.
JB, all right.
Have you ever met anyone like that?
Sorry. Katz,
Totally
thank you.
bad
All right.
faith.
All right. I do think both of you are arguing in good faith, but that is a good way to close the open discussion. We do have 3-minute closing statements uninterrupted. Katz, followed by Jim Bob. Katz, you're up.
Okay. I'm going to ask in a second if I can share screen. I just got to get my PowerPoint up. I did enjoy that. Thank you. So let's have that.
I do love my philosophy debates. That was awesome. Thank you, guys. But go ahead.
Can that go on screen? Is that okay?
Oh, yeah. I'll pin it, and we'll start the timer as soon as I do.
Thank you.
There you
Okay, so to sum up, I was going to write down the evidence for God that Jim Bob gave me during this first part of the debate, and that's as far as I got. It is empty now. I'm going to steelman Jim Bob's position, and if I get this wrong, if I'm steelmanning his position wrong, and I've told me Sunday, he can say it later on. But Jim Bob's whole shtick is to try and turn things like logic and maths and abstract things into things that must exist in the universe if humans didn't exist. And therefore, because a lot of these things are mind dependent, there must be a mind which is God's mind. But the truth is, all of the philosophers that are out there, the top philosophers in the world, as I was trying to explain before when we were getting onto truth, totally disagree with him. I disagree with him. And I think a lot of the frustration was that this was so easy to predict. And it was so easy to handle the argument he was going to bring. And I know he got frustrated. And you know what, Jim Bob? I've learned a lot from you because I've seen you do this when people debate evolution. And all I did was play your game straight back at you, which is why you got so frustrated and why we got nowhere near the evidence for God. I'd like to refute what you've said, but you didn't really say anything. That's what I've written down as your evidence for God. So for me, just to reiterate my point, all of these things that Jim Bob was trying to attribute to a mind, sure, lots of them are attributed to minds, but none of them kind of exist as entities without human life, without humans being there to interpret the world around them, to figure out these laws for themselves. They just don't. You can't take these things that humans have invented and discovered and then pretend they exist before humans are there, so therefore define your own God into existence. And I think we've seen tonight when somebody doesn't play Jim's game, when somebody doesn't follow Jim's script, that his whole argument is like a sugar pedestal in the rain and it just falls apart. I have enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to the second half. Jim, it has been cordial. I'm sorry you're not going to like what I've said there, but I'm sure you're going to give me a hard time in the next half.
Thank you, Katz. All right, perfect. Jim Bob, 3 minutes. The floor is yours.
Even in his closer, he just affirmed abstract things, which he denied the entire time. He would not affirm that abstract things exist, and he referred to abstract things in his closer. He also admitted that he played a game on me. He basically admitted bad faith by saying, I'm just going to play a game that I think Jim Bob is doing. He didn't come to debate my position. He didn't come to steal my position. He giggled about playing a game. He admitted to all of you he's playing a game, and he's mimicking what he thinks I do. He's not actually debating me. Now, as far as the evidence, I actually listed all the evidence. Now, he knows that if, he even told me through the debate, he knows that if he affirms truth, laws of logic, knowledge, information, mathematics, metaphysical categories, if he admits these are abstract things, which he did in his closer, if he admits that, he knows they're mind dependent. If he admits that discovering abstract things like patterns, invariant laws of logic, and they're conceptual, they necessitate a mind. That's all I really need for the audience to know, to say that there is supporting evidence for a mind, a necessary mind, such as God, the architect of all things visible and invisible. All of the things I listed were invisible things that this guy holds exist, but he refuses to tell me how they exist. He just goes, I don't know they exist. I don't know. Maybe they exist. Maybe they don't exist. He just won't affirm anything. And so if he thinks that's a good job in debating someone, good luck getting future debates. That's a demonstration of bad faith, not steel manning my argument, and not even trying to engage with, one, the true dilemma of accidentalism versus intentionalism. You just ran from that. And two, just affirming abstract things exist in a debate, by the way, which requires language and abstract things.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Jim Bob. And thank you, Catz. Look, we've
you.
got a 5-minute intermission. It's a good opportunity for me to finally catch up on chat. Hey, for everyone out there, I just want to say, look, we all agree on way more things than we disagree on. So it's
That's
just
not,
that we
that's
focus.
not true.
No, maybe not. It's the way I see things. We just focus on the things that we disagree on. And that's the best part, and that's the most fun. That's why we're here. So all good there. Everyone take 5 minutes. Let me respond to some chats, and we'll be back soon with part 2, which is part 2 of the doubleheader, a debate on evolution. Thanks, fellas. All right, let me pin myself. Catz, I'm going to mute you too. You guys are way too kind with the super chats. Holy crap. All right. Sorry, fellas. This is my first time live streaming, and I am trying to keep up with everyone. I appreciate the real-time feedback. I am doing my best. If you want me to see a message, yeah, of course, super chat helps, but you could just at me at YouAreMopped. Yeah. Let's go. Oh. Is it just me, or does Jim Bob look like a dust bunny with eyes? No, Jim Bob looks just fine, fellas. What's this? Catz, a planet. You guys hear me, right? I'm not muted. No. Planet wasn't a planet before humans came on the scene. It could have been a dog, but that's besides the point. X Park. Mob, you're not connected in the dots. Please let Jim Bob flesh this out. Sorry, I will have to rewatch this whole debate, and I'm sure I made many mistakes. Thank you for that feedback. I know I'm terrible at this. Oh my goodness. I know. Yeah, I'm so effing bad at this. It's incomprehensible. Yes, thank you. This is my first time. What do you want me to say? I don't know. Fortunately, our debaters are experienced debaters. Don't listen to the Christians. Hey, look, I was raised Christian. And I have a lot in common with Christians. I gotta be honest. Who just joined? Who is winning? Oh, God, no one knows. What is happening? Yeah. So that was our 1 hour evidence for God debate. We have a second hour coming up with a debate on evolution. I know, I'm terrible at this. I'm so sorry, fellas. Boys and girl. No worries, take your time. Thank you. Yeah. How did I end up being the referee for this stuff? Yeah, I'll be totally honest. Catz reached out to me and asked if I'd be willing to, well, basically asked if I was willing to moderate and host debates. He's looking to get into more debates. I guess he saw me as a potential good moderator and platform. Mistake on his part. Zero evidence was provided. I don't know. Yeah, so the second, YouAreMopped. I say, duh. Who are you talking about? Triples, wow. Mindlessly let him yap. Who's him? Look, I think they did a good job. I don't think I needed to intervene too much. Am I wrong? Did I intervene not enough or too much? Let me know. I want to get better at this. I really do. Let me know. Question for Catz. Was 1 + 1 = 2 true before any minds existed to think it objectively? Is it still true if no minds thought it today? Catz, maybe you can address that in a post stream. Fine. The only thing you did wrong was not muting Jim Bob. Kept over talking in the evidence. There was zero attempt at evidence. Hey, that's for you guys to decide. It's not for me to point out. All right, we're at 4.5 minutes. We're going to come back and start debate 2 in a moment. Am I too loud? Can you read it without censure? What? Okay. Make him answer the super chats, then unmute. I'm going to have to review this whole process. I mean, I'm sorry. I appreciate everyone. It's just that this is literally my first time streaming, moderating, and so I'm trying to read everything. If you guys would subscribe, there's another debate on the calendar. I don't want to spoil it, but Drunk Debunk Show coffee mug behind me. Yeah, that is a Drunk Debunk. I met Mike from the Drunk Debunk Show at DebateCon 5, And yeah, I ordered that mug, and it's forever part of my set. Good eye there, Calder. All right. It's been 6 minutes. I should resume the debate. All right. Fellas, I'm going to unmute you both. All right. We're back.
Thank you.
Catz, Jim Bob. All right. Thank you for that first half. We're back. Part 2. Debate over evolution. We've got Catz starting with his opening statement. 8 to 10 minutes. Catz, you're up. Floor is yours.
Can I just share my screen before we shoot off?
You may.
Hang on, let me just put that down. Yeah, and then when you've got it pinned, I'll go.
Sorry, a moment. There you go.
Okay, first of all, no hard feelings, Jim Bob. But what I'm going to do now is something very different to what you did. I'm going to actually present some evidence from the off, and I'm going to explain it clearly and concisely so everyone can understand what the evidence is. And then you've got plenty to shoot at. Watch how the pros do it, is all I can say. Now, Jim Bob, I did this at the beginning. He said when he was coming up with the titles for these debates, evidence for God isn't proof of God, which was certainly correct in his case, but he wanted to just provide evidence for God. Obviously, you can't prove something in just 1 hour. He wanted to provide evidence. He's done that. He suggested, is there good evidence for evolution, as the title for this debate. This debate, therefore, is going to be about, is there good evidence for evolution? It's not about what is a scientific method. It's not about, can cats teach me how the liver formed over and over and over again? It's not about any of those things. It's about me presenting evidence and then Jim Bob telling me why the evidence I'm presenting is or is not good. And if Jim Bob thinks it's not good because, for example, it doesn't match the scientific method, well, then I'll just accept that as his reason, but I'm not going to get bogged down into talking about the scientific method or the liver. I'm going to present my evidence, of which I've got 3 bits. So, Jim Bob, this is maybe how you should have done your opener last time. 1940. Here's a paper from 1940. Evolution is about to make a spectacular prediction that creationism couldn't make at all. In 1940, in this paper here, the chromosomes of the chimpanzee, we finally figure out that the chimpanzee has 48 chromosomes. Wow, isn't that good? And at the time, we thought humans also had 48 chromosomes. Brilliant, right? What fantastic evidence for evolution. But then, so that was 1940. Then a little bit later, 1955, 1956. Oh no, the shit's hit the fan. Humans have only got 46 chromosomes. All the creationists are jumping up and down, laughing, acting like chimpanzees, ironically. Given the fact that we're related to them, saying, aha, we can't be related to humans because we've got different numbers of chromosomes. But you know what? You know what the brave scientists did is they made a prediction that come true, a prediction that creationists could never, ever make. They predicted that at some point in the future, if evolution is true, because we know how close humans and chimps are on that evolutionary tree that all the other evidence supports. All of that other evidence tells us they are close together. If we are correct, which we're sure we are going to make a prediction. And we are going to predict that we will find fused chromosomes in the human body. Now, the bit that Jim Bob will ignore, and I will just laugh at for him ignoring, is that it is a prediction made decades in advance. Decades in advance, they predicted they were going to find fused chromosomes. And you know what? Right, that's 1955, 1956. It took all the way up until the early 1980s, 1981, 1982, until finally we managed to actually have the technology to look at human chromosomes in more detail and actually see that if we take 2 of the chimpanzee chromosomes and we put them together, the banding patterns on those chromosomes would actually match and line up perfectly with human chromosome number 2. Now, Jim Bob, if you don't know what I mean by banding patterns and telomeres and centromeres later on, I'll explain it to you, but it's very important. Please don't underestimate the importance of you knowing what those terms are, okay? So this prediction suddenly was being provided evidence for, that these chimpanzee chromosomes, right, that we predicted would have the same banding patterns as a longer human chromosome, we are now seeing it. And then not only did we see it, right, but we predicted because we started to understand the features of a chromosome. We predicted that this, when we sequence, if we could ever get to the point where we could sequence that region we thought was the fusion region, we would find degraded telomere sequences and an extra centromere. What a fantastically specific prediction, eh? What a fantastically specific prediction. We look under a microscope and we go, oh shit, humans don't have the same number of chromosomes as chimps. We are going to make a prediction that we'll find a fused chromosome. It will have degraded telomeres in the center and have a surplus centromere. And then we go on and we use that prediction and we find it. And the creationists are all like, why can't creationism ever make any predictions? Why are we so useless? We can't do it. We simply can't do it. And then what we did is we went on and we actually sequenced the fusion zone. This is 1990, 10 years later. This is like decades after the original figuring out of chimpanzees and humans having different numbers of chromosomes. We actually figured out what that fusion was, a prediction that was decades in the making. And I could go on actually about the fusion site. So let's do that. If you know anything about telomeres, you know a traditional telomere would have the base sequence TTA, GGG, that kind of thing. Obviously they degrade, they slightly change over time. And on the other strand, they would have the complementary base pairs, and we read DNA in one direction. All right, so if I'm reading across the top, I would just get TTA, GGG, TTA, DGG. That's the telomeric sequence. But if they fuse together, right, in the way that we've predicted, then actually what's going to happen is something like this. So when we look at that fusion zone, it must have this base sequence. What a fantastically specific prediction that creationists could never make or explain at all. And when we actually look at that fusion sequence, and this is taken from a paper by Tompkins, the actual creation scientist, even he acknowledges, we can see in the red, we can see in the blue, that when we put them together, rather than being TTA, GGG, and so on and so on and so on, because of fused, we get this flipping that we could only predict with these fused telomeres. And we get this here, which is the fusion site. That is something that only evolution could have predicted. A creationist would never have sat there and gone, I think I'll make a prediction about fusing. No other thought process. And the only reason it was possible is because we already had the evolutionary tree in place and all the other evidence in place that contributed to this, that made us go, if that evidence is correct, and we think it is, we are going to make a prediction, and that prediction will come true. And I brought 3 such studies. And at the end of this debate, regardless of what Jim Bob says, everybody watching can listen to the attempt that Jim Bob made to provide evidence for God in his debate, and you can look at the evidence that I'm providing here, and you can decide who's brought the best evidence. And I think we all know it's absolutely me. So already, I think this whole debate is won because I've actually brought evidence. Now, my question to Jim Bob isn't, do you believe this? I fully expect Jim Bob to say, I don't think this fits the scientific method, right? And that to be his answer. And if that's your answer, that's fine. I'll move on to the next one and the next one. That's not a problem. If that is all you can offer to this highly specific prediction that lasted for decades, right, before it was proven correctly, then fine. That's your answer. But what I want to hear from you at the end is, even if you don't agree with it, in your hand-on-heart honesty, Jim Bob, the honest Christian that you are, the honest creationist that you are, hand on heart, you're a good man. Do you honestly believe that the evidence you brought as a single piece of evidence is as good as the evidence I'm bringing? And I just want your opinion so everybody who's watching the debate can hear what you've got to say on that. And I know what I think, and I'd love you to, again, not ignore the fact that this prediction was highly, highly specific, and it was made decades before it was found, based on the evolutionary tree. How else would you make a prediction like that? That is my opening statement. I've got 2 more pieces of evidence like that, which won't take me as long to explain, which are decades-long predictions that come true only using evolution. So I fully expect Jim Bob to say evolution isn't a science, evolution can't be proven, blah, blah, blah. But all I'm going to do is ask Jim Bob what is wrong with my piece of evidence. And if he can't answer it, he can't answer it. I'll move on. Simple as that. That's what's coming.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Catz. We're going to turn it over to Jim Bob for his opening statement. Jim Bob, the floor is yours.
Okay, so first of all, evidence for evolution. Evolution is the process. It's an event, a process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed and diversified from earlier forms. That's an event. Evolution holds, I don't know, for example, a Pakicetus, which is a wolf-sized land animal in 53 million years, became a whale. Okay, that's one of the claims, right? His evidence is actually really funny because all he did is, if you can look at two things that are similar, I wonder if we can predict if they have similarities. And he said, look, similarities, similar things have similarities. Wow, that's amazing. Maybe I can predict that if God made things with similar items and similar coding and similar functions that do similar things, I could predict in one animal to find something similar to another. That means that's good evidence for God based on his idiotic presentation he just did. I can't even believe he just did that. Based on taking his model, I could just say, you know what? I think God created all life to have similarities, very closely related similarities in function, DNA, RNA, bone structure, anatomy, right? That invertebrates look similar and act similar. Vertebrates look similar and act similar. Some of these things have hearts and livers. Those are similar too. And I'm going to predict, based on my idea that God created everything with similarities, I'm going to go find similarities and really peculiar ones, and that'll be evidence for God based on his standard for what evidence is. I'm sorry to tell you this, buddy, but evolution is a claim about morphology. It's an event claim. It's not a claim about whether things are similar, dope. It's about whether or not you can demonstrate with some evidence or even support some evidence that one thing essentially turns into another thing over some time, right? Whether or not evolution, which it holds, random mutation actually can build a vestibular system. Your similarity argument doesn't tell us how things happen. All it tells us is that things are similar. It's actually a terrible argument because guess what? If you say, oh, the chimps and the humans have a similar thing going on in a similar place, well, that's true of a lot of animals. Eyeballs are in similar places with a lot of animals. Can we predict that? Voila! We must have come from a different thing because eyeballs are in the same spot. Now, look, it's really interesting that he used this methodology. Do you know the Atlas blue butterfly that looks nearly identical to the ordinary close blue butterflies? I might look at them and go, you know what? I bet you if we look at their chromosomes, we'll see something really insanely similar. Well, it turns out that the Atlas blue has 229 base pairs of chromosomes compared to the typical, which has 24. Could you predict that with evolution? Nope. Not even close. All you guys do is confirmation bias. That's not evidence because you have to define, first of all, evolution, which you won't. You know why? Because it's abstract and conceptual. The funny thing is everything he pointed to in his opener, he denies the existence of because they were patterns. They don't actually have any real existence. He basically ended himself in the previous debate because if he truly holds that there's no such thing as a pattern, well, there's no real such thing as a similarity in a pattern, whether it's chromosomes or DNA or the placement of bones or whatnot. Look, very clearly, evolution isn't the theory that things are similar. Evolution isn't the thing that similar things have wings or that similar things poop and similar things eat. That's not the claim of evolution, dude. The claim of evolution is that there's a long, grueling process in which random mutation, the rarest of them, actually builds very complex task-oriented systems like the liver, like the heart, like the brain, like the vestibular system, like bones, like the vertebrae, like reproduction. That's a big story you have to defend. And if you think picking two things that look similar and then you're surprised that they have similar things going on inside their body, you're already cooked. Please bring us more evidence because your claim evolution doesn't hold. Oh, it's a scientific theory that things that look similar have similar structures in their body. Wow, congratulations. Guess what? That's just an observation. Now, can we please present some evidence that one thing that has to have its essential property of being itself over time through random mutation can produce something entirely different over time? I'll wait.
Thank you, Jim Bob. All right, perfect. We're over to Catz for his 3-minute rebuttal. You're up, brother.
We said
Sorry, start over. You were muted.
This is the best thing you could have said, but I need to screen share before I can start time. Is that okay? This is honestly the best thing he could have said. I think that is absolutely brilliant, right? So
right,
I gave... Are we off? Oh, no, it's not on screen yet. I gave a highly specific, highly detailed prediction about human chromosomes, right? I gave a highly specific prediction that came true with years of study over decades and decades, something that was predicted using all the counter evidence of the evolutionary tree, all the evidence of the evolution tree that supported it, sorry, not countered it. And only evolution could have come up with that amazing prediction. And Jim Bob's response was, similar things have similar things. But the funniest thing about all that is they're not similar, Jim Bob. They are absolutely not similar at all. Let's have a look. Let's boot this up. This is a normal chromosome of the chimp. This is the human fused chromosome. They are not similar. Your whole argument is, oh, similar things have similar things, which is the most embarrassing. I am embarrassed for you. They are not similar. Look, all the chimp chromosomes on the left have 2 telomeres, one at the top, one at the bottom, and a centromere in the middle. But if we look at the human chromosome that's fused, we have 2 telomere sequences in the middle. We have 2 centromeres. No chimp chromosome has 2 centromeres. None. They are not similar. The whole point is they are completely different. Apart from the banding patterns that you might have, they are completely different. This is a fused chromosome. For you to hear about the chromosome 2 fusion and then say similar things have similar things, when the whole point of the argument is they are so completely unsimilar that it can be predicted by science. This is over. You are not ready for this. You don't know what a telomere is. You don't know what a centromere is. You don't know the structure of a chromosome. You are cooked already. Matt, if you'd have started your part of the debate as on fire as I have this part, you'd have done far, far better. You are cooked. That is the worst possible response you could have possibly given. And I know you've still got rebuttal to come, but you gave that rebuttal in your opening statement, so I'm sure you're going to say more of the same. Jim Bob, listen, I'll take my hat off to you. If your response to everything I've said was, similar things have similar things, then I will give you a big round of applause. That is what you've said. It's out there now for everybody to hear, and they can make their own judgment on whether you understood what I said or not. And when we get into the back and forth, you can show me you understand it. We'll talk about telomeres, we'll talk about centromeres, we'll talk about chromosomes, and we'll see whose knowledge of genetics is perhaps more suited to understanding this particular piece of evidence. Done.
Thank you, Catz. All right, perfect. Jim Bob, you're up.
Yeah, like I said, the same methodology he's using as a celebration to predict something, he couldn't possibly use the same methodology if he had not known about the Atlas blue butterfly. I want to know how he would use what he calls science, which really, honestly, is just regurgitated appeal to his authority masters. He would just say, well, they would figure it out. Watch. How would you use the same predictive modeling to determine, if you hadn't known, Catz, how the Atlas blue butterfly would have 229 pairs of chromosomes versus the ordinary one that looks just like it? All of the rest look exactly like it, but they have 23 or 24. How would you use the same methodology? We're not going to hear how. We're not going to hear how at all, right? The idea is, what is his methodology and how does it demonstrate changes of entire populations into entirely new natures of populations? That's what evolution posits. So even if he tries to use this telomere argument and go, well, we have a hunch that, chimps and humans have a common ancestor, and if we go back, there's a lot of these things that carry through, and this fused here and this didn't fuse here, and that was the split, blah, blah, blah. That's just the story. Guess what? You have to go back further than the chimp too. And you have to then make the same kind of methodological arguments with the assumed predictions of how are you going to use this methodology to trace back through time where the common ancestor between humans and chimp was, and then what was the common ancestor of that, and all the way back, right? You can't do that. Because you're pretending right in this debate, you're pretending that evolution isn't a massive claim that the Pakicetus, a land animal the size of a wolf, in 53 million years, through the four methods of the four mechanisms of evolution, transformed generationally into a whale. That's a claim you have to actually produce evidence for. Nothing about the telomere, nothing about what you find similar or dissimilar between chimps and humans does that at all. All you're doing is just describing two things. It doesn't tell us anything about the claims of evolution, not a single thing. So I'd really love you to tell me how you use the same predictive modeling and the methodology to determine you would find 229 base pairs Yeah, no, in the blue butterfly, when its cousins, right, its relatives only have 24. How would you possibly predict that?
All right, perfect. Thank you, brother. We're gonna enter the the opening discussion here. Cat's gonna get the first word. I'm gonna pin you. You're up, Catz.
So I don't know how long I get for the first word, but I'll try and keep it brief. As soon as that's on the screen. Let's just remind ourselves, I said this at the very beginning of the debate. You, Jim Bob, were the person who came up with the titles for this debate. Is that pinned on screen? Sorry, YouAreMopped.
You want me to pin your share? Sure.
Yes, please. Thank you. You are the one who came up with the title of the debate after telling me not to be sneaky because and to be fair, you were right to pick me up on it. I did write proof instead of evidence, and you start with evidence. It wasn't intentional, but you were right to pick me up on it. Okay? But you came up, you were obviously very, 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 very aware of how important a debate prompt is. And this debate prompt that you came up with is there good evidence for evolution? So I am bringing my evidence for evolution, and if you can tell me why you think it's bad, go for it. And I will just let. I've not finished yet. I'm not finished yet. And I will
Sorry,
let
Catz.
everybody.
I'm gonna interrupt you. I'm gonna unpin the screen share. I feel like the screen share should be reserved for opening statements and rebuttals. So, not opening discussion.
Sorry. So I will I'll accept. Sorry, I'm a bit thrown by that. What were we saying? So you can tell me if you think why you think that's bad evidence for evolution. But the debate title is there good evidence for evolution? I am bringing my evidence for evolution. I'm not bringing your evidence. That'd be like me bringing your evidence for God for the first off. That's silly. I'm bringing mine, and you've got to tell me why it's bad. And if you want to go off onto completely random things that were not in the debate prompt that you picked, it's not going to happen.
The meta.
We are
Just
talking
get to
about
the
my
topic.
evidences.
Okay, cool.
So my question to you would be:
wait, no, we need to get terms first. What is evolution? Because you didn't even define it.
So your rebuttal to what I said was
no. Listen close.
Is
we
evolution?
Can't. Yeah, no. I didn't rebut. I'm getting terms. You weasel. What is evolution? What is evolution?
So your rebuttal to the evidence
It's not a
I've
rebuttal.
shown,
It's a clarifying question. Okay. I put in my opener. Do you agree with this definition? The process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed and diversified from earlier forms during the history of the Earth. Do you agree with that definition of evolution?
No, I don't.
You need to define evolution then.
What I've done is brought my evidence for evolution.
You need to define evolution.
I need you to look at the
You need to define evolution.
Well, you can shout, but you chose the debate prompt, not me.
You need to define evolution.
Is there good evidence for evolution?
Catz.
I've shown you some evidence.
Catz.
All you've got to do is tell me why it's wrong.
Catz, you're not good faith.
All you've got to do is tell me why it's wrong.
Catz, you're not good faith.
You can't tell me why it's wrong.
Catz, how can I know if there's good evidence for evolution if you can't tell me what evolution is?
I've just given you a piece of evidence for evolution.
How do I know if you can't define evolution? You're so bad faith.
Hey, fellas.
Come on,
Catz,
Mod. Get in. He has to define it.
I got you, Jim Bob. Catz,
Can't do this undefined stuff, dude.
I got you, Jim Bob. Catz, why don't you just go ahead and give us an uninterrupted definition for evolution?
Okay, I'll give you a definition for evolution, which is changing allele frequency within a population. But that has got nothing to do with my piece of evidence.
Exactly. You just ended your own debate, dude.
Hey, all right, hey.
That's a fucking idiot, dude.
We need
You just admitted your evidence doesn't support your definition of evolution. It's over.
Clearly, I didn't.
You literally just said it.
No, I clearly didn't. I said me giving you the definition.
Evolution is changing allele frequency in a population, but my evidence doesn't have anything to do with that.
No, it doesn't have anything to do with teaching you the definition, which obviously you needed, doesn't have anything to do with the evidence that you brought. All I'm asking is, can you debunk the evidence? Yes or no?
I don't need to.
If the answer is no, fine.
You just said it. You just said definition. All right. The topic of the debate is this, Catz. Is there good evidence for evolution? In order to know if there's good evidence for evolution, we need to know what evolution is. You said evolution is changes in allele frequency over time in a population. You also just subsequently said after that your evidence about telomeres has nothing to do with the definition of evolution.
So your debunk of my evidence is
I debunked you.
Your debunk of my evidence is to ask for the definition of evolution like you need to be taught it. And then when I tell it you and say, well, me saying that has got nothing to do with the evidence I've brought, why should me teaching you have anything to do with the evidence? What I would expect is you to come to a debate knowing what the definition for evolution
Okay, cool.
is. The
How
fact that
does-
I've had to teach it to you
Great.
is not the one you think. Can
Okay.
you debunk my evidence, yes or no?
Yeah.
Go on,
Actually,
then.
yeah,
Do
yeah.
it.
I'm going to
Address
demonstrate.
the evidence, be honest.
I'm trying. So, changes in allele frequency, right? Is that something we can observe today in a population?
What does that have to do with the evidence I showed?
I
that you
want
are deliberately avoiding.
I have to ask you what I need an example of that in today, right? I need an example of a changes in allele frequency in a population today.
What does that have to do with the evidence I brought?
You are so bad faith. If I don't know what you mean in real time in biology in a given population right now, what you mean by changes in allele frequency over time, I don't know what you mean.
If
Give me an
you
example.
don't know what changes in allele frequency over time means, that's a problem
In a
on
population,
your
give me an
end.
example.
What has that got to do with the evidence I
you
brought?
see this,
Can
guys?
you debunk it, yes or no?
Dude,
Can you
dude.
give me a flaw, yes or no? If the
How
answer's
am I
no, I'll move on.
Catz, this is so bad faith, it's unbelievable. If the prompt, right, Mod, the prompt is there good evidence for evolution? He defined evolution as changes in allele frequency. I asked him, based on his view, can you give an example of that so I could match what your evidence is against the phenomenon? He says, no, I don't have to actually tell you an example of changes in allele frequency.
Let me counter that. I gave an excellent description of a piece of evidence for evolution that took me
We don't
about
know.
5 minutes to give
We
in
don't
the
know
opening
it.
statement. And then you decided not to talk about it, instead ask me what the definition for evolution was, and then act as if you'd won the debate because you asked me what the definition for evolution was while ignoring the evidence I gave.
Okay,
Can
cool.
you debunk the evidence, yes or no?
No. In
No,
order
you
to
can't. No, you said
No,
it.
no.
No. I said, can you
I didn't
debunk the
say
evidence?
no.
And you said no.
I'm saying
you
no
lost.
to your.
You've
No,
lost.
I didn't say no to
See,
your
I
that
can
statement.
do it too. I can do it too.
Catz,
You see what we're
listen
doing here? I can
closely.
do it too.
Listen closely. Your evidence about telomeres, I have to match that to see if that matches with your definition of evolution, which is merely another description of a phenomenon. There's no way to match that to a phenomenon that you can't give an example of. It's just abstract. Changes in allele frequency. Good. Can you give me an example in real time of giraffes, let's say, where your reference to telomeres between chimps and humans, where the end caps happen in the DNA, can you tell me how that supports just the general definition of changes in allele frequency? Because here's the thing, you have a category error here. Changes in allele frequency is merely an observation in populations. That's not a theory.
Let's talk about anything other than the chromosome 2 fusion that Catz brought. Let's drag it somewhere else. Can you debunk? If you can't and you say no, then we'll move on to other stuff.
Cool.
Just say no if you can't debunk it. Or pick a flaw in it. I tell you what, I will be quiet for 3 minutes and you can tell me why my evidence
Look, I'll
is
do
bad.
your work for you. I'll give
Go
it.
on, tell
I'll
me why
find.
it's bad. I'll be quiet
I'll
for 3
find
minutes.
changes. Example of changes in allele frequency for you because you don't know. I'll do it. I'll do your work for you. Okay, don't worry about it.
So you're not even going to.
No, I'm going to give an example for you. I'm going to do your
Let's-
work for you. No, let me do the work
let's
for
run
you.
away
It's
from-
okay.
let's run away from
no,
it.
no. I'm going to do the work for you. I'm going to teach you what you believe. Okay.
Go.
Okay. So, common causes of change in the, well, let's say how the pepper moth example works. Okay. So, would you say I'm trying to find an example. Do you think that a change in allele frequency always results in a new phenomenon, or does it sometimes doesn't?
I'm giving you the time to explain why what you're saying
To
debunks my
your
evidence.
view, yeah.
Yeah, so you explain it in full, and I'll not
Okay.
interrupt, and then
Okay.
we'll see whether it debunks my evidence.
Okay, cool. Is an animal over time, is a whale coming from a pack of cetus a change in allele frequency?
I noticed that you're still not telling me why my evidence was wrong.
I'm trying-
I'm giving you all the time you
I
need.
can't believe
Don't
how bad
ask
faith
me,
you are.
just tell me. Don't ask me, just tell me. Tell me.
you-
Go ahead. I'm listening. I will stun for 3 minutes, and you tell me. Go.
This guy, man. Look,
Go.
I'm going to say it again. If your evidence for a description of evolution is changes in allele frequency, can you tell me how? It's your argument. I'm asking you a question because I'm cross-examining your positive position, Catz. Your job is to defend your position by answering the questions, right? My question to you is, can you tell me how telomeres, the way you described them in the opening, have anything to do with changes in allele frequency?
So you're not going to address that. That's fine. So what I'm going to point out to the crowd is I gave a very, very good explanation of how the combined evidence of evolution that built the evolutionary tree, compared the number of chromosomes for humans and chimps, and then made a prediction that if that evolutionary tree was correct, in a few decades' time, they'll find a very, very specific base sequence. Jim Bob tried to debunk it by saying similar things have similar things, and then we all laughed at him because they weren't similar things. They were literally completely different things.
Mod.
And
look,
now he's not addressing the evidence I brought.
Dude, this is a cross-examination of your affirmative.
I've given you.
Catz, you opened with the telomere argument, right? You showed it on screen.
Steelman it.
I'm trying to, dude. I'm trying to. If you stop interrupting me.
Okay, mate.
You opened with, look, this is really good evidence for evolution. Look at these telomeres, right? Look at
that wasn't the argument. Steelman it.
I'm telling you that when you look at the telomeres, you're trying to make a relationship between the fusion, the difference between the 46 and the 48, right?
No, what does that mean? You're not understanding this at all. Do you want me to explain it to you again?
Yeah. Just tell me how your presentation of telomeres between chimps and humans, right? You said they're dissimilar, right? Tell me how that observation about telomeres is related to the statement changes in allele frequency.
Okay. For that, I will need to share my screen. Okay? If that is okay. Now, this image was actually for something else.
I see your screen, Catz.
So I was just pulling the image up. But Jim Bob, right, if I'm going to explain this to you, it might take me 2 whole minutes. And then I'll shut up for 2 whole minutes.
Oh my
okay?
gosh, here we go.
So, before the telomere, and it's not a telomere argument. I don't know why you're calling it a telomere argument. I don't think you know what a telomere is. But anyway, let's push that to the side.
It's the end cap of a DNA, dude. It protects it. It's a protector for DNA, dude.
Well Googled. Now, before that chromosome fusion argument was made, all the other evidence for evolution that supported changes in allele frequencies over time leading to speciation built the evolutionary tree. This is a small part of it. And what we can see is this is actually for another piece of evidence I've got, which we might not get to, but it's equally good as the evidence I brought before. Next to humans, we'd find chimpanzees as our closest relatives. So the changes in allele frequency, let me stop sharing. The changes in allele frequency over time, all that evidence built the evolutionary tree, which allowed us to make the prediction that that for some reason you don't want to talk about. And that prediction was so highly specific and so unbelievably correct that took decades of research to prove. But you don't want to talk about it because what happened was, after I went through that, you said to me, define evolution. I gave you a definition, and then you went, I've won.
Okay.
Which was your tactic. Now, I'd like you to tell me why my evidence was wrong.
Well, I will tell you what you just did is just make an assertion about the past, and you said the tree was built. Here, I'll tell you why it's wrong. Your evidence is wrong and doesn't support evolution because you can have allele frequency change in a population over time, and it doesn't follow that population over time will change into something it's not.
So let me explain again.
Did you hear what I just said or no?
Yeah, I did.
What did I say?
So you said you can have allele frequencies changing in a population over time, but that doesn't essentially blah blah mean evolution's true.
No, don't blah blah me. Don't be bad faith, dude. Try not to be bad faith.
I can't remember the exact words you said.
Does it? Look, I'll ask it then instead of saying it. Is it true that you could have changes in allele frequency in the population of moths, and it doesn't follow that you would assume moths over time would turn into something not a moth?
Well, it depends how long you're leaving it and how many changes in allele. It depends how drastic the allele. I've just said it depends how long. I'm literally just saying it depends how long.
No. Is it true, like a horseshoe crab? Would you say there may have been some changes in allele frequency for a horseshoe crab?
How does that disprove evolution? You're literally describing evolution. You're literally
Dude,
describing that it's over time.
Catz, you're so
like,
bad
how does
faith.
that disprove evolution?
I didn't claim anything's being disproven, you weasel.
Okay. How is it an argument against evolution?
Catz,
can you stop sharing? And
Catz, evolution holds, yes or no, that an animal like the Pakicetus, through changes in allele frequency in 53 million years, turns into a whale, basically. Produces a whale. Isn't that true?
Yeah, but why are we talking about that when I've just shown
That's evolution!
That you're not talking about?
Tell me how changes in allele frequency or anything you know about the telomeres between chimps and humans actually follows that a Pakicetus in 53 million years can develop into a whale? Tell me.
So I said right at the very beginning, when I was showing that your debate prompt, like you were going to bring the evidence for God, I was going to bring the evidence for evolution, and we were going to discuss the evidence for evolution that I brought. I didn't choose to research and bring the Pakicetus. I chose to bring this, and you are doing everybody who is watching can see. You are doing everything in your power not to talk about it, and you keep referring to it as a telomere argument, a shared telomere argument. I
Can you
think I
tell
need to
me,
explain it
Catz,
to you again.
Let me ask it, because you're not going to answer my question, so I might as well just ask him more. How does what you presented with your telomeres in your opener, how does that follow and support evidence that a Pakicetus can turn into a whale, please?
Right. So, what we start with, and I'll have to explain this very, very slowly for you. What we start with years back is a whole load of observations and classification that allows us to form the theory of evolution and build an evolutionary tree, which, you know what, you might say, is that right? Is it wrong? Well, we test if it's correct or if it's incorrect by using it to make predictions and see if those predictions come true. And what we then do is we look at things like these the difference between chimp chromosome numbers and human chromosome numbers, and then because we've got all that other supporting evidence for evolution, and we can then use that to make a prediction. When that prediction comes true, which is a prediction that only evolution can make and nothing else could make, then we present that in debates, and the person we are debating against doesn't understand it, and they keep asking like weird questions. But I think I'm going to move on to my next piece of evidence because I think I've made it
okay. So you're not going to answer. Just so the audience knows. Just so the audience knows, the very clear, distinct question: evolution holds that something like the Pakicetus in 53 million years develops through random mutation and changes in allele frequency and spawns out eventually to be a whale. And I simply ask, how is it that the presentation about telomeres between chimps and humans, how does that support this notion that a Pakicetus actually evolves into a whale? And you know what we got? Nothing. No answer.
All right, 10 minutes before closing statements.
Not a single answer.
So closing statement. Who starts with the closing statement?
No. So we have 10 minutes, but Jim Bob will start. He'll have the first closing in 10 minutes.
Can I? We've done that one piece of evidence, and I think it's clear that you're not going to talk about it. Can I present a second piece of evidence because I brought 3? Or is that okay? Or
no objection here?
Yeah, whatever you want, man.
I'll need to screen share again. So, Jim Bob, right? This will take me about 2 or 3 minutes, but I promise I'll shut up. I'll even YouAreMopped can mute me for 2 or 3 minutes, and you can have the equal amount of time afterwards if that's what you want. Okay. Let me just knock that down. So,
I don't see your screen yet.
Yeah, sorry, I'm messing that up.
There you
go. Okay, so again.
Now is your desktop background?
Only predictions that can be made by evolution. We start off, like I said before, with historic evidence for evolution that we use to construct an evolutionary tree. Here we have it, and we already say that we believe that this is, the evidence supports evolution, and this is the evolutionary tree. That would fall apart like a rice paper condom if we could not use this to make predictions. Now, how do I make another prediction that works? Well, I can start all the way back in 1953, and I can observe that primates, the guinea pig and pigs, can't produce vitamin C. I look at the evolutionary tree and I go, look, here are the primates that can't produce it. Here's the guinea pig and here's the bat. And then I make a prediction. And that prediction is that the gene that is responsible for making vitamin C was broken here. And all of these will have exactly the same fault in that gene. But this animal and this animal here, and it's not all bats, it's just a select species of bats, they will have different mutations to each other and to these within that gene, because that's a prediction that only evolution could make. And then we go on, and what we actually do, I'm not going to read all these out to you unless you want me to, Jim Bob. I'm pretty sure you want me to be quick. We actually then look at bats. Here we look at how bats, the genes for bats is broken, and we find that it's a very different mutation to the one it is for guinea pigs. And we find that the one that is for guinea pigs, sorry, the guinea pigs one is here. The one it is for guinea pigs is also different to what it is for primates. But also we look at the mutation for primates, and we see the mutation for primates is exactly the same. It's a single base deletion frameshift mutation for all primates, which means that the prediction we made over 50 years earlier based on the evolutionary tree, right? The prediction we made that all of these here would share exactly the same mutation that destroyed the gene, and they would have a different one, and they would have a different one. That prediction is yet again proven true by evolution, and you can say similar things have similar things. It's not gonna work. Off
Well, I want to test your methodology here. I want to test your methodology. Could you tell me how you use the exact methodology with the tree and everything to guess that the blue Atlas butterfly would have 229 pairs of chromosomes as compared to its counterpart that's everywhere that only has 24?
That's okay. You can refuse to engage with that piece of evidence too.
I'm using your
tells everybody
methodology,
what they
dude.
need
You're
to know.
such a snake. It's amazing. Like
I'm very good.
you actually presented a methodology. I'm testing your methodology on another part of nature. That's how we test methodology.
What part of what I said about that evolutionary tree was about predicting the number of chromosomes in a butterfly? Now, I don't have access to that part of the evolutionary tree. And I don't have access to the information of the number of chromosomes that the closest relatives have got.
I'll tell you, dude. You're using a chart and a concept of chronology by categorizing animals that you find on the same tree, and then you're trying to predict what likely could be a case for their capacity. Let's say producing vitamin C. Let's say it's something else, digesting leaves or not being able to digest something like that, right? Okay, so you're trying to predict on a timeline what animals will share certain capabilities or maybe incapabilities, right? And you're predicting them. But that's guessing a similarity or dissimilarity, and you're calling that a predictive model. I'm asking, how would you use the same model to predict the 229 pairs of chromosomes in a butterfly that looks exactly like another one with 24? How would you do it?
Is your understanding of evolution so poor that you formulate that question, or
see what I'm saying? Bad faith. It's just bad faith.
Question?
That's called obfuscating.
Well, the question is,
you're panicking because you have to actually use a fallacy on me instead of actually answering. Maybe you just don't know. That's
Maybe what's happened is I've produced two very, very good sets of evidence with peer-reviewed scientific studies, and you haven't addressed a single one of them in the entire hour.
Do you think predicting similarities in a capacity for an animal to process vitamin C actually is good evidence that one animal turns into another over time?
So, as I tried to explain before, when we look at the evolutionary tree, we have a whole host of evidence that has built it.
Didn't hear my question.
That is one more piece of evidence that is confirming the evidence that has come before.
What did I ask you,
So that study, and I'm giving you the answer because
just
it's not
tell me
a yes
what I
or
asked
no
you.
answer. You asked is what I've basically told you about that vitamin C.
What did I ask you?
Was I not just in the middle of
Give me my question back to me, please.
No, I'm not playing these games. I was in the middle of answering. Let me answer it.
Okay, so you're not listening.
Giving it back to you. Okay. I'm not giving it back to you.
Yeah, because you can't. You didn't listen.
Well, when I answer it, you'll see that you're wrong, and then I'll stick my tongue out at you. So what I was actually saying was that it's not just that one observation that we found this degraded, mutated vitamin C gene. It's not that one observation that you seem to think it is. It's the fact that we can use all the prior evidence that has built the evolutionary tree, all the fossil records, all the other genetic analysis, all the classification we've done to build that tree based on evolution to then make a prediction that we would find that gene. You are trying to twist it. So it's just a case of, the founder gene, evolution. And you are ignoring the fact that it's a prediction based on all the other evidence that has constructed the tree. And that is why you cannot address anything that I've said here.
So you didn't answer my question. Yeah, you didn't answer my question. Evolution, let's see if you can answer one basic question. I bet you can't. Does evolution hold that a Pakicetus over 53 million years evolved into a whale? Yes or no?
So we discarded my evidence first, and then we can go to that.
What I tell you, this guy's so predictable. I have a better predictive pattern than this guy.
Did I do that in your evolution?
Well, no,
it's included. Did I discard your evidence of God?
Guy, the claim that a Pakicetus evolved into a whale is embedded in the evolutionary view.
Brilliant. Now, can you address the evidence I presented? Yes or no?
Yeah. Give me evidence that you presented. Show me how the evidence you presented actually supports the mechanical event called Pakicetus turning into a whale, please.
Well, the fact that I've shown evidence that we're not obviously addressing, that firmly confirms the evolutionary tree to be true because we can use it to make predictions, shows that the evolutionary tree is correct. So therefore, we've shown that evolution is a process that occurs over time. I haven't obviously.
Do you think the tree is a good evidence that the Pakicetus became a whale?
Do you think somebody's just drawn a tree?
It's like talking to a garbage can.
That's what you think. Somebody's drawn a tree. You literally think somebody's drawn an evolutionary tree and gone, there's the evidence. What you are failing deliberately to acknowledge is that that tree was built on mountains of scientific evidence.
That's beautiful.
From fossil records, from genetics, from classification, from geology, built from dating record, built
can you
from
bring the tree back
huge amounts of evidence.
Cool. Can you bring
then we use it. You are making it sound as if somebody just draws it.
Can you bring me the tree up again?
No.
No? Okay. You're not even.
No, I can't. I'm just being petty. I'll bring it up for you, Kosovo.
All right. 2 minutes, fellas. Then we're going to do closing statements. So
I was only joking.
I want to look at this glorious tree of yours and maybe ask a question about it because.
Well, this is clearly a simplified version.
Yeah. Because I really want to know. I mean, evolution does pretty lean heavily on this idea that population of an animal through mutation, changes in allele frequency, natural selection actually successively alters what it is and becomes something essentially completely different anatomically and genetically. And that's an evolutionary position, but you don't seem to really want to actually engage with that at all.
In case it's not clear, I said at the very beginning of this debate, and when I make my video about this debate, I'm going to include it. I said I want an honest debate where you bring your evidence for God, and we talk only about that, and I bring my evidence for evolution, and we talk about that. And what's happened is I've brought my evidence for evolution, and you've done literally everything you can to go, no, I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to talk about that, and to talk about everything else.
That's weird.
But I'm not
actually
letting that fly.
I actually did the opposite. I actually cited your opener about the telomeres between the chimp and the human. I actually used that. I actually focused on that that evidence, and I actually brought it up, highlighted it in front of all of my audience. And you know what I asked you? I said, can you tell me how this is related to the statement changes in allele frequency? And guess what your words were? It has nothing to do with it.
So that is, for everybody watching, that is classic Jim Bob debate tactic.
I got the clip. I'm not lying.
Well, and I also asked you, can you refute my evidence? And you said no. And then I said, I can do the same to you. I've got the clip. Do you know what I mean?
The problem is,
when somebody's speaking, colloquially.
The problem is, dude.
And quickly,
the problem is,
things can happen.
I'll say it again, Catz. When you bring up the telomeres between the chimp and the human, and you said this is evidence for evolution, then you defined evolution as changes in allele frequency. The fact that you refuse to give me an example in populations today what a change in allele frequency looks like, just so I could map on your evidence to that example, you refuse to give me an example.
The fact that you're still referring to it as the telomeres shows yet again you have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
Why? Did you talk about telomeres?
Oh, so that's what that whole evidence was now. It was telomeres. That's how we're going to classify
it. Are you that uncharitable that you don't know what I'm referring to?
If that's your understanding of it, the world can see that.
Are you really... You just totally dismissed exactly what I said. Your presentation of evidence, I asked you, what does that have to do with your definition of evolution? How is it related to the term changes in allele frequency at all, right? By the way, audience, changes in allele frequency is an observation in nature, okay? That's all that is. So all he said is, I have an observation, and then this is good evidence for an observation. That's not even a scientific statement. That's not even coherent scientifically. My observation supports my observation. Good job doing science, buddy.
Thank you. So ultimately, I think everyone can make their mind up because they can wind back and they can listen to the evidence you gave for God. They can listen to the in-depth evidence and explanation I gave, and then they can listen to the following discussion, and they will see that literally you had no idea what the evidence was. You had no understanding of the evidence I gave. You were completely confused by it, and you've tried to drag it to different topics, and I wouldn't let you, and you've got more and more annoyed as the debate has gone on. And I've got out of this what I wanted to get out of it.
What's the topic that I changed it to that was different?
You wanted to talk about literally anything but the evidence.
Give an example of a topic that I switched it to that wasn't relevant.
About the Pakicetus. You wanted to talk about
how is that irrelevant? Wait.
How
How is the Pakicetus turning into irrelevant to evolution?
I didn't say
I'm
it was
gonna let
irrelevant to
Catz.
evolution.
I'm
I
gonna
said
let
You
Catz
just said
answer
it. You
that.
switched the
Guys,
topics.
guys,
my
guys,
evidence.
guys.
You're a snake.
I'm
You
gonna let
literally
Catz-
lie through your teeth.
All right. Hey, that's great. That's a great way to end. We do have closing statements still, uninterrupted. Jim Bob is going to go first, followed by
Sure.
Catz. So,
Yeah.
Jim Bob, you have 3 minutes. Stage is yours.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Evolution, the process by which different kinds of living organisms are thought to have developed and diversified earlier forms in the history of the Earth, right? That's a biological claim about an event. Changes in allele frequency, if he wants to define evolution as just changes in allele frequency, that doesn't tell us anything. Why? Because I gave an example of how you can have changes in allele frequency in a population, and that population doesn't change. And what is evolution's claim? It changes. These animals change over time. That's the core. Even the tree he brought up has branches. Guess what that assumes? Changes from previous form. Diversification of previous form. No longer the same thing. His tree actually buttressed my counter to it, which is, okay, can you tell me how your opening dialogue evidence basically supports or in any way, shape, or form the notion that animals over time fundamentally change what they are, anotypically, phenotypically. And then he pretends that the Pakicetus and the whale, the transformation is irrelevant. It's one of their key talking points. He would even have to hold, even from his argument and his evidence, that chimps and humans, the only relevance to evolution is that they share a common ancestry, which would assume the thing I'm questioning. Enough allele changes over time, that enough random mutations over time, a fundamentally different animal can turn into a fundamentally different animal than the one previous. That's what evolution actually says over time. Just saying changes in allele frequency doesn't tell us anything, right? What does that mean? Can you show me an example of that? Does it always result in a transformation of a kind or not, right? I even brought up the horseshoe crab. Further, I demonstrated his inability to use his own confident predictive model to simply look at, I don't know, the Atlas blue butterfly, right? If you can predict things with this model, could you tell me how you would predict the difference between 229 pairs and 24 with something that looks exactly the same in every measurable way? But what accounts for the chromosome difference that drastic, and how would you predict it? You know what we got? Zero. Obfuscation, bad faith, dodging. That's all. That's all we got today. Not a single thing. You can review the whole thing. Not a single thing he said today was evidence that supports the idea that a land animal can transform into a fully formed ocean animal in 53 million years. By what mechanism? Zero on that. And the key point here tonight was when I asked him how is opener, that evidence about the chromosome fusing, how is that related to changes in allele frequency at all as a definition? And it's not. There's no connection. There's no connection at all. And when I further clarify, well, I want you to make sense of the connection. Can you give me an example of changes in allele frequency so I can make the connection with your presentation, the chromosomes, and changes in allele frequency in a population? He says, no. That's it. We got this in the first debate. We got it in the second debate. Is there any evidence so far with any evolution person I debated up until now, which is getting upwards to 20, any evidence or explanation how one animal like the Pakicetus can mutate into a whale in 53 million years? No, it's a giant story. You know what we get? Charts, cartoons. That's it.
All right, perfect. Right on time. Thanks, Jim Bob. Catz, you get the final word.
Thank you. This exactly. Oh, have I been muted? Am I unmuted?
Good,
I've
Catz.
just had it. This went exactly as I thought it would. Exactly as I thought it would. Jimbo was frustrated in the first debate, obviously, and I don't think any of us are the wiser as what his evidence for God was. In the second debate, I clearly showed evidence. And what I want you to do is I want you to watch the debate back, think about it, and at any point did Jim Bob say, your evidence isn't evidence for evolution because... Did he address it? No. Look, let's not pretend. Jim Bob doesn't understand evolution. This is the person who spoke to Mark Reed about ERVs and how ERVs are good evidence for evolution, but he didn't get it because he couldn't understand what a germline cell was or what mitosis was. So he couldn't understand, like he was asked directly by Mark Reed, do you know what mitosis is? Which is something I teach 11-year-old kids at school. And he said no. Hence why he kept calling the debate, the evidence I gave about chromosome 2, the telomere thing. He did everything he could in his power not to address it, which obviously I knew he would. I deliberately, obviously, wouldn't let him go on to other things. I'm not going on somebody else's script. It was my evidence for him to critique. He didn't want to critique it. He didn't try to critique it. He wasn't able to critique it. And I think that shows everybody out there watching Jim Bob's stream that think Jim Bob is some kind of authority on this topic. I think I've really highlighted today how easy it is to derail him, how easy it is to beat him, I suppose, in a debate. I think, what can I say? What can I say? It was a walk in the park. And I don't think for a second that he even tried to address the evidence I brought because he just didn't understand it. And it was so obvious to everybody out there. But what I will say is thank you, YouAreMopped, for hosting the debate. Jim Bob, I know we've given each other a hard time, and I have taken the piss a little bit, but you are actually a genuinely nice guy. Behind the scenes with emails and tweets we've exchanged, you have actually been a nice guy. And I'm not... You understand the business, don't you, Jim Bob? You understand the business. It's one-upmanship, and we're doing what we can. You get that, all right? I think today I've come out on top. To be fair, maybe we'll have a rematch another time.
Thanks, Catz. Jim Bob, you want to give any response before we call it a night?
No, I gave my closing. Thanks for coming out, everybody. And I'll continue streaming on my end for a little bit. And if there's anyone out there in Katz's fellowship who would like to debate evolution, specifically the claim that a Pakicetus or any other animal over time through the mechanisms can change into a new one, that's what I'm interested in because that's what I hold evolution to claim.
Okay. All right. Hey guys, so for everyone out there watching, I am a subscriber. Not only a subscriber, I'm a member of both channels. These guys put out excellent content, especially members-only content. So I encourage everyone to go and join, subscribe, become a member of their channels. I hope to have you both back at some point, whether it's to debate each other or to debate someone else. But I appreciate everyone who's in chat. I'll be rewatching this for sure, trying to absorb all the feedback that I get from chat. And one more final thanks to Jim Bob and Catz for doing this.
Yeah, thanks to both of you. Seriously, Jim Bob, you know the game. It's just a bit of fun.
No, Bob,
All right.
No problem, dude.
Thanks, guys.